What's up, everyone? This is Prince Robert Onyejiak with Prince Tech TV. Yet again, another special guest, Anthony Teri. He is the Senior Director of IT for a clinical research enterprise, and he's done great things in IT, he's done great things in healthcare, and has a lot of knowledge to share. Stay tuned. Hello, Tony. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thanks for having me today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming. And the viewers are going to be very excited to hear some of the insights that you have as a senior director in IT. And so you're a senior director in IT for an academic type of organization per
Mhm.
se. And I just kind of want to know, like, what does your day to day look like from that perspective?
Sure. So under my purview is analytics, is networking, is desktop support, a lot of big projects. I'm higher up on that. Of course, it's high level,
Yes.
but projects, and as you would imagine, since April, and I won't get into it too much because I'm sure you have a lot of questions about how we handled COVID. Remote support, which is kind of a new division that a lot of companies have had grow out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's under my purview as of today. There's a lot of things we're very large. We have a lot of employees. We have a lot of doctors that we manage and a lot of staff underneath them. So it's, pardon me with the phone.
No,
Sorry.
you're okay.
Yeah, so that I think there's no complete Zoom without an Apple iPhone.
That's right.
Yeah. So okay, pardon. So yeah, so that, I'll open with that. It's there's a lot, and that would be a lot if we were in a non-COVID environment. Even
Right.
in February, it was still a lot. We had just did a major upgrade to an electronic health record that is going to allow us to deliver better services going forward. So that was great. We got to that in February 1st, and we said, okay,
Oh,
we're going to
nice.
do this upgrade. And then 2 months later, this.
Yeah. So how has COVID impacted that upgrade and you going forth implementing or developing technology?
Well, so that upgrade was quite large because we did it with 2 other hospitals.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like a tripartite situation. But so it was successful. And I wouldn't say it's seamless, but it was darn close. As far as major upgrades go from one system that you're using for your book of business, we spent 3 years migrating and planning, to do this migration, which was a proper time given the size of this.
Right.
So it was successful. Very few bumps along the road along the way, learning curves. The people that use the system, of course, were well trained, but they still had to learn. And then COVID hit, which really tested your
Everybody.
ability to use this system. So we upgraded to a system called Epic, which is very popular in the healthcare
Okay.
industry. Right. So we had been using another system. So we're now on this major Epic implementation, which does allow us, the clinicians like it. And I know the clinicians like it because I've since had 3 COVID tests because of my job. I have to get tested frequently. Thank God they're
Oh,
both
wow.
negative. But I've always asked the clinicians, how do you like the system, since I was so involved with it? And they all say it's very intuitive, it's very helpful. All the information is on one page. So that actually helped us, but obviously you couldn't go back 5 years ago and plan to hit this time. So that comes February 1st. We then, for the next month, are making sure everything's good, and then COVID. And how it affected us was, well, one, we were fortunate that the implementation was successful so that we were able to provide patient care. But part of our book of business is outpatient services, which were turned off because, we are in the city of New York. So, New York was only allowing certain things to happen. So it affected a lot of people's book of business in New York City, as it's not a trade secret. Everybody can turn on any news media or read the paper or whatever and know what's happening. So very challenging, but it helped us still provide utmost patient care. Our problem then became, we have a bunch of people now that if you're not someone who works with a patient or has to be in the office, now you're working from home. And a lot of people didn't know how to work from home. And from what I understand, there's a lot of companies that were in that situation.
Yeah. And what's crazy is I think companies, as I've said in previous talks, companies should have prepared for this a lot better, because from my understanding and from the different people I've talked to, as far as it goes with productivity, there's not much of a sync as it relates to that just because you're working remotely. So now that we're learning that, okay, remote work is something that's doable, I'm foreseeing in the future, or at least I'm assuming that a lot of companies are going to get rid of some of their real estate space and keep people at home.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the commercial real estate market is going to take a huge hit when people's leases are up.
Oh, I
New York
know.
City is a prime example. Yeah, but it's a diaspora. This is changing. So what we've
Yeah.
seen is people are moving out of New York. I mean, that's happening. A lot of the skill set people that can work from home have realized, well, I can't be in a cramped apartment, and they're buying, like, they were buying cheaper properties out in the suburbs or further out. Just in the New York area, I can only speak of that, but I
Mhm.
saw it on the news and I've read some stuff. But then what happens is housing prices go up in other areas. So do I think we're going to see an apocalyptic city? No, I do think you're going to see a very different, like, metro area, for any metro area. So just insert the name here. Let's use New York as an example. When people's leases are up, they're going to go, well, do I need 5 floors in a building that's going to cost me 20 million over 10
Probably
years?
not.
No. But might I want to keep some space there? Absolutely. And then they say, well, we can, all these malls that are going to lose a lot of stores, those malls are going to actually get a lot of rentals, because that's good space that can be further
Interesting.
provisioned by companies to use as space to have their employees come when they want to bring them together. I look at what Reed Hastings said. He's the CEO at Netflix. He was interviewed in the Wall Street Journal about maybe over the summer. We have no time, no frame of reference in this pandemic. I don't know what yesterday was. So he said, I think over the summer, they said, well, when would you want all your staff back in the office? He said about 12 hours after the vaccine. He was obviously jesting, but he said that because he said, what you're missing is collaboration. Having people on a Zoom is one thing, but having us be able to walk around and shoot the stuff for 5 minutes face to face, we need that. And that's what really people are struggling with, is that lack. I don't think you'll see, like, for what I do for a living, gone are the days of 5 days a week in the office. That's
those
gone.
are over.
You've just seen the great catalyst happen for IT, where nobody's going to be in the office 5 days a week anymore. And a lot of companies were fighting that. Some companies were very ahead of the curve because younger people wanted the remote work option. And those places were prepared for this.
Right.
The places that really fought it, and you made this point earlier, they've struggled because they didn't let people work from home, and now they didn't have proper support in place. People like, what do I do with my laptop from home? I got a laptop that runs Windows 7. You think I'm kidding? And I can't get on the VPN, or I can't do this. How do I get to my, people were remoting in just to remote desktop to their desktops at work. It's not fluid. So you're going to see a rise in VDI. You're going to see a rise in security. You're going to see a rise in just seamless work. Zero trust for security is definitely going to grow exponentially. So is a lot of cloud stuff, if people can figure out the costs, because obviously if you don't set up your cloud right, your costs could skyrocket. So I know I said a mouthful. I'll take a pause for a minute there, Robert.
No, that was some good stuff. And you mentioned security. And now with dealing with EHR systems, et cetera, and being in the industry that you're in, could you tell me, what are your thoughts on some of the risks that are coming with cybersecurity and its
Well, they're here. I mean, obviously ransomware is a big one. Like, you look at this one ransomware called Ryuk, R-Y-U-K. So that's one of the common ones people can buy on the dark web, and they can inject it into a system. University of Vermont, they got hit with ransomware at the end of October. It took them 30 days to come out of it because they didn't want to pay the fare. So they, for 30 days, had their EHR locked up. And how ransomware works is it first infects your backups, then it encrypts your files. So it's got to get to your backups, otherwise it can't hold you hostage. And that's exactly what happened in Vermont. So they might have been able to piece together a lot of stuff, but they also did lose a lot of data. There's a lot more under the hood than that, but if any of your viewers want to find out more, look for the University of Vermont Medical Center ransomware on Google, and you will see tons of stories. And also CrowdStrike, who's a vendor that provides security, they have a 68-page paper on how this went down and how it could have been fought on Ryuk, R-Y-U-K. So it's very interesting. I was reading it 2 weeks ago, and it was very in depth, but it's very interesting. So you create a secure system, someone's always going to figure out how to beat it. And with cryptocurrencies, it's created an avenue for people to hold you ransom, which is ransomware, which is a shame because I think there's a lot of good value for Bitcoin and the plethora of other cryptocurrencies. But this is what it's become. They demand Bitcoin. They use Proton Mail, which so do I, and it makes Proton Mail look bad. It's a secure email function that's free, but you could also pay $5 a month and have a little more functionality. And so it makes those things look bad, but they're really not. It's just a matter of You have to know how to secure your environment, and nobody's 100%. Even you can, some places are way better than others, but someone's always going to figure out a way in. So it's a constant evolution, security.
Right.
And that's a
But
very high level summary.
yeah, and I appreciate that summary, but how do you go about managing it? If it's ever evolving, that means there's always some sort of opening for somebody to hold some data, ransom, or what you have it. Like, what are some techniques that you have to
Well,
combat?
myself and a lot of colleagues that work at different places, I can't just speak to where I work, but there's staying on top of what's out there, keeping yourself and your staff educated,
Mm,
working with products that are backed by companies that also are working to keep evolving that product. You know, you might remember the early days of Norton Antivirus. And
yep.
Norton Antivirus was always updating their virus files, and they would constantly learn, and it would use any infection you got to educate itself as to how it got in. And there's plenty of other vendors that do just a great job like that too. Again, there's no 100% coverage, but there's definitely a lot of people that are 100% not covering themselves. So,
Right.
you know, places like mine, we spend a lot of money on security to make sure. And even still, I'm sure the University of Vermont had some things in place, but there was obviously some loopholes. And I'm not trying to point a finger and pick on them. I mean, I can't imagine the hell that their IT department went through for the 30 to 40 to 50 days, the 60 days. And that's why CISOs get paid so much money, because they're the ones that get fired first when something like this goes down.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy
So for
world.
any aspiring CISOs out there, don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And another question, Tony. So, what, as it relates to your portfolio or projects, like what are some of key challenges that you run across?
Well, one, you know, especially in this, I'm imagining you're speaking of this environment. So in this environment where you lose some business, there's a challenge where some projects are going to get tabled for a year,
Yeah.
because you have to say, okay, we've lost some money this year because we couldn't do as much business as we wanted to do. So we're going to have to table some capital projects. That's
Mm,
challenging, because maybe some of those capital projects were really necessary,
great
but what is
value.
necessary is capital preservation first for a company. So you have to do that. And you try not to lay people off, and you try to keep what you have in staff. So making cuts like that allows you to keep your staff
Mm,
and further empower them, that they say, wow, we went through a tough time and this company kept us. That's pretty impressive. So you have to hold back on the spending. You also have to reach out to your vendors and say to them, you got to give me the COVID discount, because you don't want to lose my business altogether. What can your company do realistically? You know, there's some people that'll tell you, oh, I hold that vendor over a barrel. Okay, that's wonderful, but they still have to make a few bucks, like, to stay
right.
in business too. So they have to go from being able to make that premium, you know, major pop, to understanding that they're only going to make a few dollars profit on this sale. Are they willing to do that? And the better vendors will do that. There's a lot of vendors that are sharpening their pencils, renegotiating contracts, or as your, you know, maybe 3-year Microsoft license comes up, you reach out to Microsoft and see what they'll do. If they won't, that's the great thing about capitalism and competition. You can call Google, you can call, you know,
Somebody else that
AWS,
will.
you can call lots of people that have a similar product that can get you through this time if you can't afford it. Especially the small to mid-range companies that really need to tighten up a little bit because they want to stay in business. What can they do to save money? And there's always opportunities. I just think that if you try to let go of staff right away, and there's some companies that have no choice but to do that, but if you can avoid that, because you let go of a few, you're going to put the other ones on notice, and they're going to go, uh-oh, I better find another job before my company lets me go. And you don't want to have
Yeah,
that exodus, because that can be counterproductive to a company.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then my other question is, how do you decide which projects to go forward with and which ones to not go forward with? Because
Well,
as
in
you
this in
said,
this environment, you're gonna, you know, you're gonna judge mission critical. You know, so if it's something like, say you're in you know, healthcare like we are, it's something that is paramount to patient safety. Well, then you're going to use that. But if it's something that can also have one heck of a return on investment and provide a better service and save you money over the next 3 to 5 years, that might be able to get put to the front of the line too, because it's going to give you a service you want and get rid of something that you've been overpaying for a few years. An
mm,
example of that might be, maybe it is time. I have a bunch of servers now, end of life, a ton. Maybe I have a couple of hundred servers. Well, I can't afford now to buy 100 servers, but I can afford to put them in the cloud, AWS, Google, Rackspace is a vendor, Azure. I could talk to these vendors now, bring them all to the table, tell them this is what I need, and we've done this. This is what we need to put in a cloud somewhere and have DR and fault tolerance. There's going to be almost no upfront money when you do it that way. So that's something to consider. You can put that in the cloud for 3 to 5 years, and maybe it's going to wind up ending there. Now you're out of the hardware business. You don't have to buy hardware. You don't have to replace hardware. You just have to make sure you provision your cloud correctly to not overspend, because now the cloud works is how much usage you have on these servers, your CPUs and data writes and reads and memory. But you can save a lot of money if you had been planning to spend $500,000 in server upgrades and you don't have it this year. You spin up some cloud, you might spend that over 3 years instead with no money up front. You could also pay up front for some of these cloud providers, but in an environment like this, maybe it's best you don't.
Very interesting. There's many different ways to come at this, and I really appreciate you bringing the knowledge of, how you prioritize your projects, what you foresee in the future. But also, the last question I want to leave you with is, for your industry in particular, where do you see the future going? What are some things that you think are going to be paramount to the success in your industry with what you're dealing with, et cetera?
Well, VDI, virtual desktop environments, are one of them, where people can just log in from a website, from any computer, even an old one, and get into the secure environment, almost like a Citrix farm, or whatever way you want to have it built, with all their icons, just like you do if you're going into the Google environment. You have your Google Drive, you have your email, and a whole bunch of other things, very similar. And I'm just using Google as an example. There's plenty. Microsoft Office 365. If you, as an individual user, pay $7 a month, you have access to the whole suite, even Microsoft Teams, and you can pick those things. So I think there's a lot of that. VDI, because it's secure and it's easier to spin up, and you don't have to worry about types of hardware. You can Mac, it's agnostic, Unix, Mac, Windows, of course. Also, for my industry, which is healthcare, telemedicine has already begun.
That's what I was thinking too, yeah.
We spun that up about a year prior, so we were fortunate, and it actually helped our patients. Oh yeah, yeah. But there's a lot of companies that have come out of the woodwork to help companies get on board quicker. It's really not hard to do. Heck, even my insurance company, they have an app, and it says if you don't feel well or your kid's not feeling well, just open up the app. We'll charge you $20 for the copay, and you can see the doctor. So that is, the future is here with that. It's just quite a few other companies, like the small mid-range ones, need to get on board, and I think there's going to be a lot of cheaper options for them to do so, because it's pervasive at this point.
Yes, and that's what I definitely think. I think there's going to be a lot of alternate ways to provide, healthcare services, even beyond just telehealth. I think there's going to be a lot of IoT. There's going to be an increase in that as well.
Yeah.
And are you guys doing anything with that, or?
We were experimenting with some Fitbit stuff, some homebrew.
Nice.
And when I was at Sloan Kettering, the same thing, because patients that were, sent back home at Sloan Kettering after they had their treatments, they had the Fitbit on, but there was also an app from another vendor, and I'm sure there's tons of vendors, that you can, put your finger on it, it'll take your pulse, and you can enter in your information, your vitals every day. And it could also scan your Fitbit and send to it. You scan with the Fitbit app and then send it up. So that's going to continue to get better. Obviously, look at these Apple Watches. They're amazing at what they can do now. And Fitbit's also evolved from just being a very basic one. And now they're all going to just be amazing. So, good and the bad. It'll know our vitals at all times. It'll know where we are at all times. Pick your poison.
And my last question, I know I said this before, but do you think cybersecurity or, hackers are going to be have more influence on IoT, et cetera, because if it's wireless technology, then I feel like that's going to almost create like a playground for these guys. Now that
it already has. You're right, Robert. It's already there. Like, you could secure your Wi-Fi password, and you can make it pretty challenging. Someone can still drive by and hack it if they know what they're doing. So it's always evolving. You can block it by MAC address in your house. Someone can spoof a MAC address from outside your house in their car. So these IoT things in your house, your whole house can be hacked. You could have every Amazon Alexa go off and play ridiculous music or listen in on you.
Jeez.
You could have your thermostat played with. People have done that. The Ring doorbells have been hacked up left and right. If you just type hacked Ring doorbells in Google, you'll see more video of just random people's doorbells just aiming outside. So, which is fine. It's outside your door. Don't put them in your house.
Right.
No to that. So yeah, security will always be evolving because, to your point, Robert, hackers will always be evolving.
Yep.
Just think of banks back in the day. Banks used to just be brick and mortar. That's the only way you can rob a bank. Now you can steal someone's money without even touching the money. So
Yeah.
it's quite frightening. We've all gotten a hacked credit card where we go, I didn't spend $100 on iTunes. And you have to call
Yeah.
your credit card company, and they realize someone in New Zealand bought, this one's greatest hits plus 10 other volumes. So it happens to all of us. We keep taking precautions. There are credit cards now that are coming out with no numbers. There's, the RFID chips that you have to put
Yep.
in. I think tapping your phone to hit and have to purchase something is awesome because nobody can see your number. One of the most common ways about 7 years ago, people's phone numbers were getting, or credit card numbers were getting stolen was either at restaurants or at gas stations. Because you're basically handing someone your credit card.
Right.
And they can go and just take a picture of it, take a picture of the back, and now
Very
they've got
quickly.
everything they need.
Yeah.
Especially if you go to a restaurant on your birthday. Well, now they know your birthday.
Right. And then when you
Right.
pay, I mean, you let them go and they leave with your card, and
And think about what people do on social media. They take pictures of everything. So when someone's out of their house. Worse is when people take pictures with their car in the background and their license plate showing in the picture.
Yeah.
Or the home address. So we know your home address, we know your license plate of your car. Man, we got a lot of information.
Yeah.
People don't realize that we have just handed over our civil liberties because the phones are fun. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very unfortunate. And I mean, I'm looking forward to see how the world, continues to change and how these guys become more crafty and hack more things. I mean,
They'll get crafty. It'll be something impressive. Obviously, like I said, Bitcoin, I think, has a lot of great use cases, but the bad thing is it's faceless cash, which has created this environment. So I don't know. I think at some point, depending how bad the ransomware gets, you could see an attack or an assault come out against crypto. Right now, everybody's too busy making money off of it. So right now it's got to.
We're not worried about it right now.
No, but because inflation, when inflation goes up, crypto will probably go up.
Yeah.
If once the world gets back on its feet, which could be 18 months from now, crypto will definitely go down because then people will trust money again. But who knows? I mean, I say 18 months, it could be, who knows?
Yeah, we really don't know.
No.
Only thing we can do is try to prepare.
That's it, sir.
Yep. Well, Tony, I appreciate you coming out and speaking with us. For me personally, I've learned a lot in this and seeing different ways that people can hack and just how important it is to really protect yourself and your organization. So I think.
Okay, well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. It really has. So take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.